Hey everybody, it's Gwen and I'm back with another fall DIY video for you for 2023, and these are super easy to make, mostly using Dollar Tree supplies. If you are new, welcome, and if you are returning, thank you so much for coming back. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell so that you are notified when I upload a new video. Let's get on with the projects. For this first DIY, I will be creating a wreath wall decor sign using one of these beaded wreaths, as well as that wood square piece, a family word, a wood word, as well as a variety of florals. And again, these are mostly from Dollar Tree. This one's super easy because it didn't really require a whole lot of painting except for the word family. So first thing I'm doing is adding some hot glue to the back side of this beaded wreath. And then you'll want to gently lay it down over that wood sign, making sure that you have it centered properly. And you'll want to make sure that that little metal piece at the bottom that connects the beaded wreath to be facing downwards, at least face it in the direction where you will be adding your florals to, so that you can camouflage that metal piece. Now, the little tricky part about this wreath bead is that the beads tend to want to roll around. So when you roll it over the wood sign, that square wood sign, some of the beads may twist, and then you'll want to make sure that you have it twisted back down flat, and then make sure that you add more hot glue as needed. That's sort of the issue that I had. So as I mentioned, I did take a variety of florals, and essentially I wanted to create more of a dried floral effect without actually using dried florals. So as you may or may not know, dried florals are a little bit more on the pricier side as opposed to their counterparts, which are the plastic or the faux stems. So these are made to look similar to dried florals, but they're not. So this is definitely your cheaper version of that dried floral look. Now, if you have dried florals on hand, or you can get them for cheap, then, you know, try your hand at making a dried floral wreath, because it does have a very nice appearance to it, especially for fall. Has more of that natural elements appearance to it. But this gave it the same sort of look, so it wasn't bad at all how it turned out. So once I cut down a variety of these different picks that came from Dollar Tree, these were featured in a few of my Dollar Tree hauls, probably maybe a few months ago. And I'm not sure if you could still find these, to be honest, just because you have to sort of get a head start on the seasonal stuff before the actual season rolls around, if that makes any sense. But if you are lucky enough to find these, or if you have a Hobby Lobby near you or a Walmart, I'm sure you can find things that are similar in the appearance. So as I mentioned, you're going to want to cut all your stems down to size and decide on how you want to lay out your pieces. I'm going more for a balanced look, so what I do to one side, I tend to want to do on the other. I was trying to offset my florals. This isn't directly centered. I was trying to go for more of an off-centered look, if you will. So as you can tell from this view here, more of my florals were sort of cascading higher on the left side. And some of those, I'm not sure if they're called hops or what have you. I'm not really sure the exact names of these stems, but some are like wheat, some are hops perhaps, and then there's like some things that look like round balls, and then just a variety of really cool things, but I don't have the technical terms for it. But basically what I did to one side, I like to balance it off with the other side, just making sure that I was dispersing the same color or the same type of floral, among the entire wreath. So, I would create that balance that I was looking for. So right here, I'm working on like the darker looking pieces, and I wanted to make sure that I had, equal or at least something similar in the amount that I put to the left as well as to the right, and then so on and so forth. So you get the gist of what I'm doing here. So at the end of it all, this is really your design, and you're gonna have to figure out what looks good to you. But typically when I make wreaths or any type of floral arrangements, I do favor more of that symmetrical look. I do like to have like the same color palette or the same types of florals or colors kind of sprinkled throughout, just again creating more of a symmetrical look or a balanced look. So just keep playing with your parts, all of the pieces here that you're using. I'm just using hot glue. I was thinking of using like wire, but that would have been a little tricky considering the wreath is glued to that wood background. And you would not be able to wrap a wire through that wreath as you typically would have you had created like more of a traditional wreath where it was freestanding and didn't have a background to it. So in that sense, a wire would have came in handy. But in this situation, I simply had to use some hot glue, and it worked out just fine. And, you may have to keep adding as needed, and, keep pushing and adding pressure to different parts of the florals just to make sure you have good adhesion. And then I decided to add a little more of that textured element by adding some raffia. And I'm just going to bunch it up a few times and then tie it down the middle with a piece of jute string. It's just like a messy bow, but it's more so for the texture effect or textural element to add to this wreath. So there's really no rhyme or reason to making this bow. It's just the easiest way to do it. So it's just sort of like a messy appearance, and just fluff it out as need be. And then I did opt to cut those loops and just make them open just like this. And then they're going to create more of that fuller effect. Now, if you have more raffia on hand, you can certainly opt to make yours look a lot more fuller, more bushier, but this is all I had to work with. So I used what I had and what I could at the moment. So once I had that part fluffed out, I just added some hot glue and applied some pressure to the middle. And I felt like that wasn't enough as far as a decorative element or embellishing this piece. So bringing down that brown color from that beaded wreath, I decided to use this ribbon. It's from the Dollar Tree. I've had it for maybe a year or two. And it has like some designs on it. It's like the wreath, like wreath images. And I thought that the nice dark brown was a perfect color just to sort of ground this piece, since all of my florals were more on the lighter and more natural side. And I needed something to anchor this piece down to sort of tie in with the dark wood bead on the wreath. So I thought this was a good option, and I just simply took a strand that I needed and then just sort of kept looping them around my fingers. And just since this is a one-sided design, you want to make sure you sort of twist your ribbon around as you're looping it between your fingers, just to make sure that you have this, the image facing up. Now, if you have more of a double-sided ribbon or where the design is visible on both sides, you don't have to worry so much. But in this case, it was one-sided. Design was only on the one side, so you have to be a little bit more strategic when you are looping the ribbon around your fingers. Now, this is something that you just sort of have to play with. There's really no clear instructions that I can give you for this, because in actuality, I was just winging it as I was doing it and until I was able to get the look that I was after. So once I created my loops, of course you're going to want to dovetail your edges because it does give it that nice finished look. So I'm going to place it right in the center of where I added the raffia bow. Again, adding more textural element as well as interest and more color to this wreath. And then you're just going to want to use some hot glue and just glue that down into place. Now this was a really simple wreath to make, super fun. I love making DIYs involving like florals and greenery and things like that because it's so much fun to play around with the placement as you go. You know, just creating like something visually appealing without not necessarily knowing how it's going to end up. But that's the fun of DIYing, is because you can experiment until you are content with, you know, the overall appearance of your project. Also, if you don't like how something looks, it's easy just to, you know, pull it up and sort of start over and until you are happy with how it all comes together. So now that the bow is attached, I knew I needed to add something to the center. It was looking a little bit blank and plain for my taste, so I decided to use one of these wood wordings that's from Dollar Tree, and I chose the word family. I just gave it a good coat of cashew color. This cashew color is a really nice neutral color, especially for fall, in my opinion. And then I took my Tim Holtz Distress ink and just sort of distressed the edges, just adding some darkness and more depth to the sign or to the wording. Again, I just didn't want this to look like it was just floating. I wanted to sort of anchor it down a little bit by adding darkness to the edges, just tying it in with the wreath and the bow. And then just simply hot glue that down into place, and I think this totally completes the look that I was after. Now, if you don't like words on your DIYs, then you can skip this step, but what is a farmhouse DIY without wording? Am I right or am I right? Well, I love how this came out. I hope you guys like it too. Moving right along to DIY number 2. This one is super easy, very beginner friendly. If you are looking just for a quick DIY to add to a vignette, this is the perfect DIY for you. Just take one of these chalkboard houses, again from the Dollar Tree, and this vinyl paper is from Hobby Lobby. Super cute. It has a very neutral look to it. It has like the dried florals image on it. The colors are very muted and I really love the color scheme of it all. So I just traced out the house, and this is what I will be covering the chalkboard with, the chalkboard part of that house with. So it's a little tricky to trace the exact measurements of the inside of that house. So you just sort of cut out more than what you need, because it's easier to just cut off the excess and to cut too much and then not have enough to cover your space. So always err on the side of caution. Now, if you overcut, my best advice is to use some string, ribbon, or jute, just like I'm going to be using, just to sort of finish off the inside of that house. And you'll see here in just a second. So like I mentioned, this paper is vinyl paper. So it has a sticky adhesive, so it's perfect, easy peasy. I'm using one of these jute twine. It's from the wedding section at Hobby Lobby. It's a nice cream color. And I'm just sort of outlining the inner part of this house, just trimming off the inside. And this is perfect for just finishing off the look, as I like to do in all my DIYs. And this also covers up any imperfections or any miscalculations of the paper, of how you cut it. You know, usually it's really hard to get a good measurement when you're cutting around or trying to trace around an object and then get the correct sizing. So it's always good idea to sort of trim off your edges using some jute twine. It's very forgiving. It's a way to camouflage your mistakes or your errors. And it's my hack for, you know, sort of covering up those, you know, imperfections in your projects. So it was super easy, just taking some hot glue. Make sure that you use the glue very sparingly. You don't want it seeping out the sides because this jute twine is very thin. So you just need a very small amount. And that was it for that part. It was super easy just to, you know, trace the inner part of it with the jute twine. And I think, like I said, it gives it that finished look, as you can see here. Then I used one of these fall words. It came in a pack from the Dollar Tree, and I used the wording Welcome Fall. And taking my color hazelnut, I just painted this word. And then I'm going to be hot gluing that over the top of this house. And this was just the perfect length to run across from corner to corner of this house. So it gave me, you know, just enough space to add some hot glue and attach this wording down to the house. Now you can decide for yourself where you would like your wording to go, but I decided to hot glue mine higher up over that house because I'm going to be adding some dried florals to the bottom. I also didn't like the look of that black chalkboard paint on the chimney part of it, or not the chimney, but the, yeah, I guess you would call it a chimney. So I also painted that in the color hazelnut, just to tie it in with the wording. Next up, it was time to add some dried florals to this DIY. I took these florals I had on hand, and these are from the Hobby Lobby. I believe I got these on clearance last fall. So I just took like a couple sprigs and just cut it down to size. I was trying to figure out how I wanted this to look over top this house. So as you can see, I was just sort of, you know, flipping it around, seeing if I wanted to create more of a swag or have it draped on one side. Eventually, I chose to have it like this, where it's sort of facing upright and angled, and I liked how that looked. Then it was time to hot glue everything down into place. And I told you guys this one would be super easy, very beginner friendly. Can't get any easier than this. Took a few little supplies, very little painting, just mostly gluing and attaching things down. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I think it's super cute, more of a neutral type of fall decor. And again, it's just perfect for a shelf or a little vignette, just to add some cute touch. Last but not least, I'm going to make a simple bow using one of Dollar Tree's faux leather. Just do a shoestring bow and then tie it down the middle with a piece of jute twine. Then make sure you trim off your tails. I just did a simple like angled cut and hot glued it down into place right at the center where the two dried florals meet. And I think this came out super cute, super simple. Hope you guys like this one. Very easy to follow. Let me know what you think. Moving right along to DIY number 3, I'm taking one of these pumpkin signs as well as some napkins from DollarTree. And this one, again, is going to be one of those really easy DIYs, very beginner friendly. I'm also using a window cling. I pointed to the wording that I will be using. So this is just a quick makeover on one of these typical Dollar Tree seasonal signs. Rather than messing with the design on the front because it's a little too much work in my opinion, so I decided to flip it over and just give the backside a good coat of white paint. The reason for this is anytime that you Mod Podge or decoupage like tissue paper, napkins, or anything like that to your piece, you're going to want to give it a nice bright coat of paint, particularly white paint. Now, if you have ivory or off-white, that works too. Just don't make sure that you don't go for the dark colors because using like a brighter background color before you Mod Podge anything on it, especially napkins, it's gonna allow your design to come through a lot better. It's gonna pop out on your DIY and it's not gonna sort of get lost with the background of that, you know, the natural colored brown that's on your background. So always paint your background in white paint. That's always worked better for me. And again, it's just something to help your piece pop a little bit more. So as you can see here, I just took a sponge brush and just dampened it with some water. And I'm just sort of tracing around the shape of this pumpkin. And this is just so that I can peel off any excess napkins, giving it more of like the natural cut line as opposed to like cutting it with scissors. So this is a super easy way to just sort of trim off any excess napkin that you will not be needing for this piece. So then just with your fingers, you just peel off any part of the napkin that you don't need. And then I went ahead and took some Mod Podge and just rub some on sparingly over the pumpkin sign. And then I used a brayer to help smooth out my napkin over the Mod Podge. Now, just be careful when you're using Mod Podge. You want to make sure that you get a good even coat on your base, that you don't like skip over any sections, because sometimes when you are doing it section by section like I was doing, there's a tendency to sort of skip over certain parts of your piece and not realize that you didn't add Mod Podge to certain parts until you discover later when you go to apply your top coat, which is another top coat of Mod Podge, that there's certain parts that sort of bubble up and raise. And that usually happens, in my opinion, from my own experience, in different areas that may have not been adhered, properly. Like if I didn't put Mod Podge in that particular area, you see like a little bubble where it's raised, off of the piece. So just be careful. That's what happened with me in my DIY. I did have to fix that problem. So then I went ahead and chose the wording, thankful, grateful, blessed. And this is just the window cling, and just use some glue stick. I also used one of these leaves that came from another pumpkin sign, I believe, and just used that to add to this pumpkin. And then I also added a leather or faux leather piece of ribbon to the leaf. And that was it for this DIY. I also reused that little mini pumpkin that you see off to the right. It came off of this particular pumpkin sign, And I decided just to hot glue that as well to the sign. That's where, you know, using all the pieces that you remove from the original project or the original sign kind of comes in handy, because nothing goes to waste, and you know, you're able to reuse the different pieces. If not for the project that you're using or that you're creating currently, you can always use it for something in the future. And how simple was this to do? It took so little time to make. And just to finish off the back part, I did use some craft paper, trace out the back side of that pumpkin, and then hot glued the craft paper on top of that design. Again, just to finish off the look, and that way you're not able to see it from the back. Again, it's just me that would be seeing that, and I just like to finish off my projects. Now, if you think that's a waste of time and, you know, you don't need to cover it, you can skip over that step. But this is something that I do like to do in all of my DIYs. Let's take a final look at all my DIYs for this video. These were so fun and easy to do. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and got some good ideas. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. And again, if you are new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you as part of my YouTube family. Thank you so much to all my subscribers. I do appreciate each and every one of you guys. Please like, comment, and share my videos, as it does help my channel to grow and for YouTube to notice it just a little bit more and to push my videos out for others to see. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day, and I will see you in my next one. Take care.